Good evening, everyone. This is Reading for Charity again, continuing on with our 100 book reviews. This is review number 46, I think it is, 47, something like that. And today it's Gardens of the Moon. The lighting's not fantastic today, so that's about as close as I can get. There we go. So this is the first book in the Maslan book of the Fallen. This is the huge, wide-ranging fantasy epic by Stephen Erikson and now some other people as well. Some other people have come on board as well, kind of writing books in the same universe. It's all very interesting. But it's what I find most interesting about this book is the fact that I've read it after. Well, first things first. I read these books a while ago. I read these books when they started coming out. I think they're absolutely magnificent. They are tremendously good books. The stories in them are really, really good. Now, I've gone back and read them after having read The Black Company. And I mentioned this when I was reviewing The Black Company's books, that the remarkable similarities between those and the Stephen Erikson books and the Black Company's a decade plus, 15 years plus, I think, before the Stephen Erikson books were written. When did he write this? 1999, I think it was it maybe? 99. This was done, and I think the Black Company was something like 1984. So good 15 years before this was read. So there's a very, very good chance Stephen Erikson actually read The Black Company, because he's a well-read guy. But the similarities between the two series, at least at the beginning, are striking. So when you're talking about the the two groups, the Sappers and the Black Company, they're both essentially the same thing. They're both embedded in warfare, fighting morally ambiguous battles. They're morally ambiguous people. They're all super interesting and they're not necessarily good people doing good things. It's there's the moral ambiguity within it is really good. With the Black Company, it's a case of the contract is the thing. Following that kind of rigid sense of honour and duty to the company comes before doing necessarily good or bad things. You do what you need to do to survive. You do what you need to do to follow the honour of the company. With the Sappers in the Garden of the Moon, it's very much more they're doing what they need to. Well, most of them are doing what they need to do just to survive because of everything that's gone on before, and some of them are in there to hide. In particular. Quick Ben, who is just hiding from everything and who is completely, ridiculous character. But we'll get into that in a second. So the similarities between the two are very striking. And I'll say the same good things about the Stephen Erikson books that I said about The Black Company, which is the characters are fantastic. I love the fact that, there's no shades of black and white in there. That's not the good guys lining up to fight the bad guys. You knock them down and good wins. That it's very much more shades of grey. It's a little bit of everybody loses, which is an awful lot more like real life. There's more fighting in the Stephen Erikson books than there is in the Black Company. The Black Company quite a lot of the time, picks up after a major battle because it finds that the characters and how they deal with those are more interesting than the battle themselves. Erikson doesn't really shy away from the battles. He describes the battles pretty well, mostly because it gives his characters a chance to show off. And here's kind of like the major difference between the two books, the two series is the Black Company books. The characters are most definitely human, absolutely human. With the occasional wonder about the likes of Raven, who's virtually supernatural in his abilities. And the Taken, and the Lady, everyone else is pretty much, low powered. Croker is just a man. If he gets shot, he dies. End of story. In the Erikson books, everyone is completely ridiculously powerful. With very, very few exceptions. So for example, Whiskey Jack, as an example, is just a man, and Well, we'll use the spoilers. We'll use the spoilers. Here's the spoiler fingers. Come back when the spoiler fingers stop. Spoiler fingers. Spoiler fingers. No, go away. Go away. So, Whiskey Jack dies. Dies at the end. Yep. Okay, no more spoiler fingers. Whiskey Jack, is just a man. He's if they shoot me, dies. But everyone else in the story are ridiculously overpowered. I mean, completely and utterly overpowered. So I think that partially becomes due to how Erikson was writing it. He was writing it as a role-playing game initially. So all the characters are, we think, people who were actually playing as games. So Quick Ben, Whiskey Jack, etc. Even Rope. Rope is insane. I always think of Rope as being similar to the girl in Firefly, who is the ridiculously superpowered fighter, but is just really nice and sweet the rest of the time. I always think of Rope as being as that, despite the fact that the Gardens of the Moon was written before Firefly. It's like the two characters are so intertwined in my head, it's often hard to separate them. Because it's that kind of idea. It's the sweet, nice girl who just happens to be an absolute psychopathic killing machine. Yay! Everyone in the book is completely OTT. I mean, Callum is just basically a super assassin. Whiskey Jack is like the most charismatic, skilled commander who's ever been. Quick Ben is just is the stupid wizard. I mean, Quick Ben is just like, so you come across a situation, it's horribly bad. Quick Ben goes, click, it's solved. And it's like, okay, well, here's another situation that's 3 times as bad. Click, it's solved. Here's another situation that's 10 times as bad as that one. Quick Ben goes, I unleash hell upon everything. And it's like, okay, come on, it's just, you're ruining the game because you're just too powerful. And it's a little bit like that in the book. There's very little that Quick Ben can't solve just by unleashing an absolute ton of magic, and it gets a little bit silly, and and it's a criticism I'm going to make for the rest of the series, which is that I like the fact they're powered people. I like the fact they have superpowers essentially, and they can absolutely kick ass. But it gets a little bit daft. It becomes Dragon Ball Z like, someone turns up from nowhere that no one's ever heard of before, and he's suddenly somehow more powerful than this other guy who we know. So they fight and somebody wins, and then someone else pops out of the woodwork who's even more powerful, and it's just like throwing more and more powerful characters at it until you're going, well, where do we end with this? You're literally at the stage of saying, now God turns up. God turns up to slap you because he's the only person that can actually give you a fight anymore. And it's a little bit where the story goes. So I think it has to be. I enjoy the setting, I enjoy Erikson's settings, and I really enjoy the books. I love how they're written. The first 3 books of the Black Company I actually think are better because they don't suffer from the escalating power situation. You find that a lot with a lot of fantasy series. You find it with a lot of fantasy and sci-fi TV shows. I always use Enterprise as a good example of this. Series 1, they saved the Earth. Series 2, they saved the solar system. Series 3, where'd you go after saving the solar system? They saved the universe. Okay, where can we go after saving the universe? Well, now we've got to save time and space itself. It's that constant escalation that everything's got to be bigger than the last one. And a lot of fantasy novels fall into the same trap. And Erikson kind of falls into the same trap a little bit with this. So I would say that the Black Company books are better because he doesn't. Glenn Cook doesn't fall into the same trap. The power level remains fairly static all the way through. There's not constant ramping of power. And I think that's one of the. I think that tips the Black Company in favour of the Maslan books. Just because of that. I mean, don't get me wrong, Maslan books are absolutely fantastic. They're highly, highly, highly enjoyable. But I think the first 3 Black Company books are better. And certainly, you look at the Wodge Books. This is the first one. There's 10 in the series now, I think. This is 729 pages. 729 pages, and it's you're getting on for 10,000 pages at this point for the story, and it's a big Wodge of fantasy. I really like the fact that the Black Company books are an awful lot thinner, and they still tell the good story that you want to hear. I'm not saying that it's waffles, it doesn't, but there's a lot in this book. There's an awful lot in this book. You get roughly like 2/3 of the way through and you're like, okay, you could have probably wrapped up some of these subquests by now, and then he just opens up another one. When it starts going on with sorry, rope. That subquest kind of gets opened up and then kind of closed again and then reopened as Callum and Fiddler start taking Sorry back to her homeland. And it's like going, well, okay, right, fine, but did that necessarily need to be in this book? Well, possibly not, but you get the feeling that Erikson has this huge, massive plot line that he GM'd, and he's basically just been writing and going, well, that's kind of a book, that's quite a big wad of book, I'll throw that at the publishers and we'll do it the same again next time round. So it's being a GM, you can see the bits in the book where he's clearly had to GM a party round a problem. you can clearly see it in the book at times, and the way he has to separate the party, especially Quick Ben, out of the party, out of the group of characters that he's RPing, purely because Quick Ben is just such a problem character for everything else. It's as a GM, it's fun to watch because you can imagine how these games run out, in this book. So yes, I'm gonna keep this relatively short. Should you read this book? Should you read Gardens of the Moon? Yes, you definitely should. Absolutely. I think this is one of the excellent fantasy novels. I think this is one of the fantasy novels that changed how fantasy was viewed this millennium. Because this is, when was this? What did I say? This was 99. Yeah. So, from this 99 onwards, I think the Erikson books definitely changed how fantasy was working. We had the Wheel of Time was the kind of the gold standard leading up to that, and then you go far enough back in history and you get your Tolkiens. But the Wheel of Time and Game of Thrones was really kind of the standard for those, and I think Erikson changed the landscape somewhat with how he wrote his books, to the extent where what's his name, Brandon Sanderson, there you go, who is the current kind of darling of the fantasy world. Definitely follows in Erikson's path for how he writes his books, for how he writes his characters, for how he sets up his high fantasy world. Definitely, everyone's been learning from Erikson how that happens. So yes, definitely you should read this book. I think it's one of the maybe not this series. I really like this book, but I think there's other books in the series which are better. But you should read this book. You should read the whole series. In fact, it will take you forever, but you should definitely read this series. Absolutely. Okay, so next up, tomorrow's one is going to be Deadhouse Gates, continuing the Stephen Erikson. I've only got 3 of them on the list to read, which is probably good, because if I had all 10, I'd probably still be here this time next year reading them. Because again, this was a wodge of book. It's 700 pages for that one, and this is over and top again. How much was it? It was 1,000 pages in this one. It was pretty close, I think. I seem to recall. There you go, 959 pages in Deadhouse Gates. So this is going to be tomorrow's book to review. Until then, this is Reading for Charity. We're doing a 100 book read for the Archie Foundation. It's a fantastic charity in the northeast of Scotland, helping sick kids. It's a really good charity. I'm proud to support them. We've raised loads of money so far, hoping to raise some more by the end of this, but we'll see. If you've never donated before, please do. The Just Giving link is in the description of the video on YouTube and on Twitch, so please go ahead and do that. And I will speak to you all again tomorrow for a review of Deadhouse Gates. Until then, thank you very much, and good evening.